wait, this computer. It refuses to do what I want. Grr. I'm trying to cover up a piece of information on my screen that I get distracted by, and I'm constantly looking at it, and I don't pay attention to what I should be paying attention to, and it looks like I am stuck with one way of doing this, and it's so annoying. No, it's just not going to work. I got to leave it alone. When I know that there's more than one person watching me, I start getting nervous and I stop paying attention to what I'm delivering to you. And I cannot hide it on my screen. At least I haven't figured out how to. All right. So what if you could sit down from your 50-year-old self, and what would he beg you to stop doing? And that's the big one. You have tremendous value, and you have something of tremendous value to offer the world around you. Why should anyone even listen to me? What did I get wrong in my 20s, and what did it cost me? That was a big one. I didn't believe I had value to offer the world. I was just desperate that that I could be accepted on a low level. Nowadays, kids say low key, right? So I wish that I could get low key accepted, because I didn't think I had any value to offer anybody. Just please don't be mad at me. Please don't ignore me if I'm in the group. Please, I don't want to be in trouble. And that led me to a lifestyle of low achievement, of very low achievement. You are capable of so much. As I say this in an emotional way, you are capable of so much. When you are, those of us who are when I was in my 20s, I didn't believe I could offer anybody anything because I was terribly uneducated. I still am terribly uneducated. But that belief that I didn't have anything to offer also led me to have no drive, no push, no desire to learn beyond what I understood I'm supposed to learn. I was in a community. This is driving me nuts. I cannot stay focused as this information is there in front of me. And I do apologize as I keep on shifting away. There we go. Now that is helpful. Yay, figuring things out. At some point, I will figure out how to get this set up so that I don't have to disappear from the screen and not talk. All right. I got wrong my ability to learn, and I got wrong my ability to contribute, which seems really vague and broad. But the reality is you do have something of tremendous value to offer the world. And it first starts with you. And just because you went to university, high school, college, that does not mean that's the only thing that you have to offer this world. It's not the only thing. And it doesn't mean that your education and your learning stops there. So like my channel is about health, nutrition, and self-improvement. And that's possible because I continue to learn, finally. But in my 20s, if I had started this in my 20s, how much more I would know today. And so what it cost me is, well, one, employment prospects. I do find it difficult to find work because I don't have a lot of economic value to the business world. I have some. I absolutely have some. At the end of the day, if they would hire me, I can work at McDonald's and flip burgers. I mean, I do provide some value. But what if I believed I was capable? What if I believed that I could do more than just simply believe the right things, but that I could actually become skilled, that I could become wise, knowledgeable, that I could understand the world. You can understand the world. The world really is not that complex. There's a lot of complexity within the world that's happening, but the world in and of itself is just not that complex. And you don't have to go to university in order to gain skills that give you the ability to contribute to this world. University has a tremendous value. It totally does. But it's not the only way. What if, like, I suck at school? I'm terrible in that space. It's not an environment where I thrive. Okay, Rodney, if you don't thrive in university, where could you learn? What skills could you gain? What skills could you gain that would allow you to have value to offer this world? And ideology and and ideology has its place, but it can be limiting. I want to be careful here, because if you're a Christian, you're like, but I have an ideology. How could that cause problems? Ideology is a system of belief, and you've been taught how to categorize and see the world. And one of the challenges with ideology is that you can't see the world for what it really is. You only see the world for what you have been told it is. And that is not always in harmony. So another thing I would tell the 20-year-old, be willing to hear those who do not agree with what you have been taught. Because at 20, we're still formulating our opinions. We have some, we totally do. And listen to those who disagree with our opinions. But the big one, in my opinion, is listening to those who disagree with what we have been taught. I didn't gain this lesson until much later in life. If only I had asked questions and learned how to ask questions in my 20s, how much more I could have learned in the time that I have on this earth. Now, my channel is about health and nutrition, but these ideas translate to many places on in life. But hear this. When did I finally realize that what I was eating, believing, and doing was shaping my future body, mind, and spirit? Not until what could I say? I would say my late 30s, early 40s. There's no specific date. I'm typically not a man who is filled with a lot of events. Like, I have this specific event and it changes my mind, right? I do have a couple of them, but it's very rare. Instead, it's like a time period happens and there's a shift that takes place. But late 30s, early 40s, I started to understand deeply that, first, what I believe affects my future and affects me personally. It affects my relationships. And very specifically, it came down to, what do I believe about myself? And this is a lesson I'm still learning today, because it's hard to shift. I've got all this belief and foundation and framework that I have for life over here, and trying to shift it over here is hard, because it's not an empty page that I'm writing on. And so it's like, oh, I got to find room. How do I shift this over? I've got to test it. Do I believe it? Forget about do I believe it. Is it true? Does it line up with reality? But I believe all this stuff, and I understand that to be reality. And so going through the process of testing all of that, and then finding what I need to reject to then adopt what's new. And that's easier. That's an easier process when you're younger, because you don't have nearly as much preconceived ideas and preconceived beliefs. In your 20s, it's much easier. Obviously, as a teenager, it's even easier still. What I was eating. Most of us in our 20s, at least, okay, you know what? I'm going to really nail today. There seems to be two schools of thought, two cultures within the 20 somethings nowadays, even their 30s, and that's this. Either they don't care about their health and they're not interested in the latest flippin' cause that's going on in the world today. And so they're going to do whatever the heck they please. And, they're not interested in the latest version of what is wrong. So that, they're going to eat their pizza, they're going to drink their alcohol, they're going to party and stay up all night, and they're just not going to care about their health or the health of the world around them. There's just too much demand. Because one of the things I've noticed today is that you have to believe the right thing at that given moment all the time, or you're a bad person. And when you're trying to figure out yourself, figure out the world, figure out where you fit in, figure out how you're going to survive, figure out all these things, when someone comes along and is like, oh, changing the rules, oh, changing the rules, oh, new rules, here's some more new rules, it's like what? You give up. You're just like, you know what? I don't care. I want my beer, I want my pizza, I want my video games, or just whatever's easy. And we're not interested anymore in trying to just be healthy and be perfect. And I wish I could tell a 20 something, you don't need to be perfect, and that actually being a good person is simple. It's not complicated. It's dead simple. It's hard in the sense of resisting doing that which comes up in us naturally, our natural impulses, and giving into emotion, and those emotions get bloody powerful. But it is simple. It doesn't change from day to day. Because in the world today, what's wrong today is right tomorrow. Imagine trying to mold your life around that. Okay, so that's that one. They don't care. Okay, what's the next one? These are the ones who try to keep up with the changing right and wrong in their lives, and they don't care about themselves at all, and that all they do is desperately try to shape their lives. They try to shape their lives around what is it I'm supposed to believe? Not how do I believe, or how do I know what's true? How do I stand on what is true? They don't ask those questions. It's just, what am I supposed to believe? And they are then desperate to say, not show, but say that they believe the right things, and to have the right script memorized every single day. And so they will throw their health away. They'll throw their health away just to fit in. Now, this is not the same thing as people who, they just don't care anymore. There's so many, the rules keep changing all the time, that they just don't care. And as I'm talking, I'm realizing there's a third group, but let's stick with the second one first. So, veganism is supposed to be the way that you are supposed to eat in order to take care of the planet, in order to do what's right. Not, here's how we take care of your health, but here's how you do the right thing. And so they'll abandon all animal products, they'll abandon everything that is actually good for them and healthy for them, and they will conform their lives and their bodies and themselves around this moving, I want to say moving mold, but it's not that the mold moves so much as the mold keeps changing, and you're desperately trying to keep up with it. And so you get sick, and all of a sudden you're 35, and you've ruined your health. And the same thing goes true with a person who has given up on trying to keep up with the stupid rules, and they ruin their health. And all of a sudden they're 35 to 40, and suddenly they've got all these diseases, heart disease, diabetes, and obesity, and fatty liver disease, and all kinds of other issues. And then with the person who went vegan, it's not that they're super obese, so that can take place so much as they are wildly deficient in all kinds of nutrients. Their brain isn't functioning properly, their reproductive system is not working properly, and their organs are not functioning to the point of sometimes even shutting down. And this happened because they believed in an ideology that has no foundation, and they were desperate to change to it. And now all of a sudden their mind and their body is just broken, and then this has a huge effect on their spirit. They can't tune in to spiritual things, philosophies, ideas. When your body is struggling, when your body is sick, when your mind is sick, the spirit is in disharmony, and it's very difficult to connect to the spiritual nature of life. Now, I know there are amazing scientists who will argue that there's only the physical. I do disagree with them. I think that there is enough evidence showing that there is a spiritual side to life. For me, I connect and relate to that spiritual side through Christianity. But if we are locked in to either giving up or like chasing after strict, then you get these kind of results. Now, here's another one that I thought about as I was talking, and that is the ones who, like, they're talking about the rules keep changing. But the other one is where things are so strict. Things are so strict that they give up on the constant lack of flexibility within the system of belief that they are in. It's just you have to be perfect all the time. And if you have to be perfect all the time, you're going to find out you're not. I'm not perfect. Heck, man, freak. and you're not perfect. You know that. And now all of a sudden, all these rules come along that you have to be perfectly following or you're a heretic. Well, eventually you get to the point where you're saying, F it. I don't care. And I'm just going to do my thing, and I just don't care. All of this leads to that weakened, agitated spirit, which makes it very difficult to connect to a lot of philosophy and faith. Does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense here. In your 20s, hear the voices of those that do not agree with what you have been taught to believe, and test what you've been taught to believe against reality. What are the outcomes that people are getting who are adhering to the systems that they've been taught to believe, to the ideas they've been taught to believe? What are those ideas? Because I've noticed that a lot of young people today, all they know are the rules. They don't know why the rules are the rules. And I was no different. I was no different in my 20s, in my 30s. It was, here's the rules, keep them. Here's the rules, keep them. And somebody real smart with a real clever mouth would sit there and tell wonderful stories and amazing things and get me to believe whatever it is they wanted me to believe. And one of the big ways they accomplish that is other. Hear this, hear this, hear this, hear this. They'll say, these people believe this thing that is bad, and you don't want to be like that, do you? So you should believe these things that are good. And that's it. They don't test the idea. They don't demonstrate what makes the idea true, and they don't show you the truth. And there isn't that exercise of how to believe and why to believe and testing it. I'm becoming more and more a fan of debate because it tests It brings in that opposing belief that does not believe anything that you or I believe, and they knock it out of the park. When someone doesn't agree with you, your idea gets tested. And this is big. This is really, really big. It's not you that's being tested personally as an individual, so much as the idea is being tested that is believed by one or millions of people. And this next question, I think, ties into what I'm talking about. Do young men today realize that health isn't just about looks? It's actually about freedom. Think about this. If your body is functioning the way that it's supposed to, in considering what is normal for the human body and how it's supposed to function, you have more ability to do in this life than if your body is not functioning properly. Now, there's lots of ways that I can give an example here, but I'm going to stick with the health that we have control over, right? I'm 5'4", used to be 220 pounds. Guess how much fun I had getting in and out of a sports car? That is not designed for somebody that's wildly obese. How easy would it be for someone like myself, the way I used to be, to go on a hike to the top of a mountain? There was this amazing gentleman I saw. He was in Hawaii, and I do not remember the gentleman's name, but he was big. He was 500 and something pounds, and he was a YouTuber, and he was doing his YouTube thing, and somehow it came to him that he needed to make the health change. Right now, I never followed up with the channel. I wouldn't even be able to find the nice man today, but he decided that he's going to go for a walk, and he's going to walk up a hill. And for someone like, say, I'm trying to think of somebody super healthy. For now, I'll just pick on, oh, no, let's go with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, because, yay, good character. Okay, so Joe Rogan's going to go up the mountain. How much difficulty would Joe Rogan have going up the hill, not the mountain, but the hill, in comparison to somebody who weighs 550 pounds? Well, I mean, at some point, and I hope this young man followed through with what he was thinking of doing, he could weigh 200 pounds. And it'd be way easier for him to get up that hill. He has the freedom to go for a doggone walk. Can literally go for a walk. When you're weighing 550 pounds, going for a walk across the room is about all you can do. And suddenly you're caged in by pleasure. And the only pleasure that Buddy gets access to is whatever entertainment he can get from his television, computer, to the food that he has. And that's it. There's not a lot of pleasure that he has access to, or adventure, or experiences, but now he gets down to 200 pounds. Even if that meant he was still a bit overweight, he'd have way more access to the world. And all of a sudden, his pleasure horizon just skyrockets because Buddy did make it to the top of that hill. He did. And he was so excited because there he was. He was looking at the horizon and just looking down at the town. And I mean, it wasn't that big, but dude, he hadn't done something like that since what? He was 6, maybe? Who knows? I don't know if he's ever done anything like that. And here he was doing that. When we get healthy, we get access to freedom. Now, it does mean that amazing young man suddenly can't have pizza anymore, can't have hamburgers anymore, can't have, fries and gravy or biscuits and gravy. He can't do that. That's true. And we would say, well, that's terribly limiting. And what Buddy's choosing is which limitation is he going to go for? Is he going to restrict the food that he can eat so he can have access to life? Or is he going to restrict the life that he's going to have so he can have access to food? When we take control of our bodies and get healthy, you have access to life. And someone in their 20s, if they can figure this out before they're 50 years old, this is amazing. Because now all of a sudden, the 20-year-old never has to worry about getting diabetes. I know, it's supposed to be a luck of the draw. Type 2 diabetes, luck of the draw. I don't think that it really sits that way. I think that somebody in their 20s who's on the path to getting diabetes is 100% in their hands. Where the genetics come in is whether or not, let me think here. Let me say this. Someone in their 20s, the genetics will say how likely you are to get diabetes if you have a really bad lifestyle. That's it. It's no different than alcohol. No one's born an alcoholic, right? But there are some people who are more prone to alcoholism than others. And that's it. And what's amazing, though, is the body does have tolerance. And what I've learned is that you can lose, how do I say this? Getting distracted. Just because you have a beer doesn't mean you're suddenly going to be an alcoholic. And just because you have a burger doesn't mean you're suddenly going to be fat, right? But if you have gone to the extreme, you are diabetic, or you are wildly overweight, or you did become an alcoholic, yeah, you got to restrict. You got to shut her down. But if we choose to do that, we have access to the world. We have access to life. But if you're in your 20s and you don't throw your health away, yeah, then sure, you can handle a little bit of mess. You can handle a little bit of unhealthy. It's not going to kill you. But if you have a really bad lifestyle, so if young men would recognize that their health isn't forever, and it is tarnishable, you can wreck your health. But if you are faithful to your health, yes, you can afford even going to a party once in a while and eating the way you're not supposed to. But if you throw your health away, you throw that away too. Does that make sense? What's one truth I wish someone had told me before I started chasing approval instead of just healthy mind, healthy body, and healthy spirit? What's one truth I wish I had understood? Truth is not defined by the people who tell us or by the people we align with. That is not how truth is defined. Truth is defined by itself. Truth is true because it is true. That's it. It does not need a committee to decide that this or that is true. And here's the other thing. You have full access to understanding what truth is. You do not need to be told that, okay, yeah, that's true now. You can actually figure it out for yourself. You really can. Once you understand what makes truth true and what makes truth truth, you have access. And one of the things that helped me understand and identify truth for truth is that truth is always in harmony with reality. And nobody has a monopoly on identifying reality. Now, the challenge is filtering out who is in harmony with reality. So, like, I'm making claims on my channel that eating meat is not unhealthy. It would then land on you to start looking around. Is this crazy claim that this bearded guy on YouTube is making, is it true? Because me being who I am does not make it true. It also doesn't make it Wrong. If an alcoholic comes to us one day and says, hey, getting drunk ain't worth it, and you're like, who are you to talk? You're an alcoholic. Who freaking cares? Is what that man said true? If somebody who never went one day into school, never one day in school, came to you and said 5 plus 5 equals 10, does it make it true because the school said so, or does it make it untrue because he said it? Do not chase, in my opinion, the approval of others to adhere or align yourself or put yourself in harmony with what is true. In my opinion, you'll find that once you align with truth, others who have also aligned with truth will line up with you, and you won't be in 100% agreement, right? That does not exist. You're going to find that they disagree with you and you disagree with them, but because you practice the habit, because you practice the habit of listening and hearing others who do not agree with you, you will find that you can have harmony with those who do not agree with you and yet not lose the truth that you already understand. You will not lose yourself in the beliefs. You get to stay and exist. Your individuality, 100% intact. The essence that makes you 100% intact, not touched. And then you're just always putting yourself in harmony with what is true. And truth is anything that is in harmony with reality. Here's a piece of truth. You are made up of water, and water evaporates, and you lose water every day from your body. So in order to keep your body hydrated with the amount of water that it needs, you need to drink water. Now, what you could do is go find somebody who disagrees with that and hear what they've got to say. What's their evidence? Right? But you don't get lost. You're not lost. You're still you. But what are you going to believe about drinking water? Oh, I hope I'm making sense. And then as I reminded myself, and I love these notes, man, I love these notes. What does living in harmony with truth really mean? It is action-based. Okay? So like living in harmony with my beliefs, with truth, how does that affect, say, how I think? I will not stand or adopt an idea unless it satisfies truth. I'm not going to adopt it. 10 plus 10 equals 20. I will not adopt that unless I can see and discover and not actionable, demonstrate that it is true. So I'll go get 10 objects and put that there. Okay, get another 10 objects and get that there. And does that get me to 20? I'm going to test it. Now that's simplistic. That's simplistic. But okay, let's go with something far more complex. If you eat fat, you're going to get fat. Okay. Now go find people who consume copious amounts of fat and only fat. Do they get fat because of the fat? That's what you'd have to do. And then let's say you discover that fat makes you fat. That's what ends up happening. Well, guess what? To put my life in harmony with what is true, I'm going to restrict myself from eating any fat because I found out that it's true that it makes people fat. Now, I do actually believe differently than that, but does that make sense the way I'm describing that? So I'm going to practice, I'm going to put into action in my life that which is true. Once I discover that it's true. One of the big issues I have with universities is they don't teach you how to discover what is true. They instead tell you what is true and discipline you if you don't adhere to what they tell you to be true. This is the same thing in many, many religious organizations. Religion will come along, and you pick your faith. This is what's true. And then if you don't adhere to what is true, then you are in some way disciplined. And there's different ways that gets done in different religions. What if the religions showed you how something was true? They showed you how to identify truth. What if the universities and the high schools, heck, the elementary schools, would teach you how to identify truth and what truth actually is? You could then mold your life around everything that you discover to be true. Do you know how many doggone cotton picking fights that we could avoid just if we would focus on sticking to identifying truth and then aligning our lives with that? Heck, most wars get fought over greed, or fought over which religion is more true than another religion. Actually, the real wars in history were fought over people wanting more. The people in power wanting more power, the people with who had land wanting more land, that kind of stuff. Religion, when they say religion caused wars, it's like no, it was greed and intolerance and things of that nature that led to war. But whatever. So what breaks my heart most when I see how young men live, eat, and think about health today? That their health does not matter and that good health is not attainable. When it comes to what you're taught in universities, and in some cases religion, but really the universities and stuff like that. And also I've noticed within the news media and certain online media, the idea is your health does not matter. The world matters, the planet, creation, or nature, the way that they like to say nature, that's what matters. That matters far more than humans. In fact, humans are described as a disease on the planet, like in the movie The Matrix. Humans are a disease, they would say. Oh shoot, I'm forgetting the agent that said that, but that humans are a disease. And to think that they would take that on and just adopt that and just think that that's all that they really are. And I've heard young people say terrible things about themselves and about humanity that takes the value of a human away from themselves and from others. And that, yes, they eat, but only in harmony with what they have been told is true, and that humans are a disease, and so they eat and treat their health similarly. I mean, when you have the flu and you take some medication to kill the flu, you are very happy to see the disease that's causing you to get sick die off. Or a virus or bacteria gets into your system. We take medication to kill that off. And what if we believed that we are a disease? Then seeing that disease get killed off, especially if you believe in good, you do actually believe, and most people, they believe in good. So they see this thing happening, and it's just like, Lord, have mercy. You're not a disease. Humanity is not a disease. In the movie The Matrix, where the agent says that, it's presented as a lie because it is one. Humans and bacteria may have some similar characteristics, but all kinds of life has overlap. Like meat comes from DNA, so do bananas. And 50%, and meat has 50% similarity with banana. How do I say this? Meat, DNA has 50% similarity to banana DNA, but they're not even close to the same thing. They may come from something similar, yes, and there's overlap, yes, but they're not the same thing. You can eat meat, but how it interacts with your body is completely different to how bananas interact with your body. You can eat both, right? There's the overlap. And a banana is not a highly processed food from a factory, so the meat and the banana, boy, they got some overlap. But then how they interact and engage with the body, completely different. Or I should say, how the body engages with bananas versus meat is completely different. Your value and your worth is infinitely more than any bacteria. And the similarities that you may have as a human being to disease is negligible. You are different from any kind of disease. You are not one. You're not a virus. You're not a bacteria. You're not a sickness. You're a beautiful, powerful, handsome, strong, good thing as a human being. It drives me nuts when I see that. And I see so many young people believing that they aren't of any value, and I believed similarly. Now, I didn't think we were a disease, but the way that I engage with the world, I very much was in harmony with that thinking. And if somebody had caught me before I found Jesus, I think I would have bought that idea. Never would have tested it to reality. Never would have tested it to its outcomes. I would have just believed it and then accepted the outcomes as they came. Man, you're so much better than that. Why do so many young men think they have forever? Yeah, and I fell into that trap too. And it's not that it was a conscious thought, like I have forever. It's just things felt so far away. I met somebody who was, I'm 21 years old, and I meet somebody who's 33. And I'm like, wow, that person felt very, very far away from me. 12 years is not that much time. I now look back on my life from 12 years ago, and I'm like, oh shoot. You can see how close everything is. It feels that way because we have a hard time seeing into the future. And a lot of times we are not in connection to the earlier generations. Somebody in their 20s will spend minimal time, any minimal meaningful time with generations before them. I mean nowadays on the internet, I've noticed like young people will say boomers. For some reason, Gen X very regularly gets forgotten. But they'll go boomers, and they say it in a kind of like dismissive, sometimes derogatory, that doesn't matter to me kind of way. Just who cares? Those young people who connect to the generations before them are far greater in their thinking, their health, and their vision. They can see the future. They can see the future. Those young people who are only connected to their age group with an ideology, you get those two together, they can't see the future. They fear it. They fear the future. And your health, if your health is garbage, oh man. Okay, it's like one of the things I've noticed with young people today, they fear the future and don't want to be there. This generation is not the first generation of 20-year-olds. This generation there's so much life to be had. And this is where I could just jump on the religious. I could jump on the religious. I am a Christian. I love Jesus Christ. I cannot reach my Bible, but I have two Bibles right over there. New King James Version. And I would I get so frustrated with the religious, and this is what it is. We are in the end times. We are minutes away from Jesus Christ coming again. All the talk within oh, a lot of places about civil war. Gee, it'd be wonderful to be a 20-year-old now. Jesus is coming again tomorrow, and there's going to be a civil war, and it's the religious that are talking this way. Let me give some hope. A civil war is something that we as a people have to choose to do. And the weak don't defeat the strong. There is a future for you. And you don't have to believe everything perfectly and say everything perfectly to have access to that future. There is a future as long as you choose to engage. Jesus said, "Nobody knows the day nor the hour except for my Father in heaven," on the day of Christ's return. And everybody that tries to do this whole date setting thing are always wrong, including the soon. Let me help you understand. I love the Bible. Paul, big fan. I am a big fan. I am a fan of the Bible. But those guys also said Jesus coming soon. So these people have been saying Jesus is coming soon throughout the last 2,000 years. Maybe we don't understand God's idea of when Jesus is coming. The biggest thing Jesus said is watch and pray and stay ready, which I interpret that to mean be conscious of the world around you and stay in relationship with Christ. Because when we pass away, boom, that is the second coming for us. Hot diggity dog. And then this whole thing of like, there's going to be a war tomorrow. No. There are people that are trying to get it to happen, yes. Just like the I think it's the brown coats in Germany, and there was the blue coats in Italy, I think, were stirring things up, trying to get civil unrest, right? The KKK back after the Civil War, they were trying to keep things stirred up, right? So that the black people would not vote for the Republicans. They did not want the Republicans getting into office. They wanted to get them out. And one of the ways they accomplished that was to suppress the black vote through the KKK. And they wanted to make sure that the Democrats either got back into power or stayed in power. Jesus will come when God the Father decides he's coming. And we don't go to war unless we so choose such a stupid path. You do have a future. You actually have a real, for real, true future. Don't throw your health away. Don't throw your life away simply because you've been told that there is no future. Simply because we've been told that the end is near, however that end gets defined, depending on where we're coming from theologically and philosophically. The truth is, you can live. Take control of your mind. Take control of your body. I want to say take control of your spirit, but I'm pausing on that for a second. And I'll say, and release your spirit to connect to the world around you. People are wonderful. They really are. Oh, yeah, there's bad ones. Absolutely, there's bad ones. Heck, nature is wonderful, and nature has its moments that we're like, daggum, nature, you stink right about now. People are wonderful, and you have a future. And if you're healthy in your body, in your mind, and your spirit is free, daggum, I couldn't sound more kooky. But for real, if your body is healthy and if your mind is healthy, your spirit can be free. And you can connect to other human beings in a meaningful way. Not simply because you believe everything you're supposed to believe, but because you believe. No, 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 no. Hold on. Because your spirit is free to connect to that other human being. I would love to connect to you. Maybe you don't believe what I believe. That's okay. That's okay. I'm not going to grow as a man unless I allow myself to be exposed to those who do not believe the way that I believe. And I would love to talk to you. Hot dog, at some point on this channel, I will be doing interviews, and I'm going to definitely be trying to seek out those who don't agree with me. What a fantastic opportunity for conversation, learning, and growing. And what if, and then you allow those spirits to come and connect to each other. Not every one of my friends agree with me. Hot dog. And I love them. I love my brothers, man. My brothers, my best friends, right? My best friends. I'm pausing on saying that. Just, you know, you can get so close to somebody that they become like a sister. They become like a brother. For me, it's brothers. I have a sister. I love my sister. She's the only one I want. I don't want any more sisters. But when it comes to brothers, iron sharpening iron, absolutely. I definitely want my brothers. And I have three tight, close brothers who are as different from each other as you could possibly imagine. And they challenge me and kick my butt, dadgummit. And I love them. Having a free spirit because your mind is healthy and your body is healthy is powerful. But when we're sick or afraid, how you connect to others except those who believe exactly the way you believe. Like, it's just not possible. Health and nutrition. I know this. How does health and nutrition have to do with what I'm talking about here? If we are healthy, then you get access to life. Mm. And I put down here, what did faith first teach me about my body, mind, and spirit? And when I finally understood this, because again, I was told what to believe and I never questioned anything. I was so desperate for approval, so desperate for acceptance. I was desperate that I never questioned anything. But when I was finally taught to question and how to question, what did faith teach me about mind, body, and spirit? And I've said it already. When you're healthy here, you can have access to health, to your fellow man, and to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who I suddenly realized I did not pray before I got started with this. Sorry, Father. I get so distracted and I get focused on things. Still haven't built my habits yet around this. But when I'm healthy this way, in my body, I can connect more readily in a healthy way to the people around me. And that includes to people who are unhealthy. I was thinking of Charlie Kirk and how he would engage and talk with people from all walks of life. He didn't care, agree or disagree, and he actually emphasized the disagree. Those who disagree with me, come forward. Let's talk. Let's really wrestle this out. But you see, he was able to do that because he was healthy in mind and body. Now, I would challenge him on some of his health opinions, but I'll tell you what. If everybody adopted the ideas of, say, like Paul Saladino or Robert Kennedy Jr. and their passion for health, our world would be a much better place. Because Robert Kennedy Jr. and Paul Saladino, he's a what would he be? He'd be a ketovore, a ketovore. They don't agree with everything that I think. They don't agree with everything that Dr. Anthony Chaffee thinks. But they definitely agree that ultra processed foods are ravaging our bodies and our minds, which is then wrecking our spirit and our ability to connect. But then it even gets worse because we judge each other and think that I can't talk to that other person because they're not who I have been taught to agree with. Oh man, what do you believe? I'll talk to you. I will. I'll talk to you. Talk with you. Faith taught me when I finally came to understand this, that it taught me how to connect to you, which enabled me to connect to God. So many people will tell you, you got to connect to God first, or you got to love yourself first. I connected to you first. That's actually how I did it. I came to understand you were valuable and that I can connect to you, which then enabled me to connect to God. Checking down at my time here, hour and 8 minutes. We're good. We're good. And thank you for hanging out with me this long. Why is eating in a way that honors God also a way that honors yourself? This is huge. You're completely valuable, right? Like I said that at the beginning, and I'm going to put this in there. Ultimately valuable. You are of ultimate value on this earth. You don't outvalue God, of course, but between each other, the human race is the ultimate value on this planet. And if you eat in a way that recognizes that value, you honor the value that you intrinsically have that comes from God. God thinks you're valuable. Look what he did on the cross. Jesus Christ died on the cross because you are valuable. You matter. All the laws. Okay, no, hold on. Pause. The Constitution of the United States in its original form and the laws that were drawn up for a long time in the United States were drawn up under the idea that every human being is ultimately valuable and equal in value as a human being to any other human being on the planet. That's why the President of the United States is voted for and comes from the common people. You take a look at J.D. Vance from the United States, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of Donald Trump. Buddy grew up in poverty, ridiculous poverty. And he is being taken from that place to the second most powerful man in the United States of America. How is that possible? Because he is of equal human value as you and as I. Donald Trump doesn't have greater value because he's a billionaire. And Kamala Harris isn't of greater value because she comes from where she comes from. Her value is equal to Donald Trump, who is equal to J.D. Vance, who is equal to you. You have value. And when you eat in harmony with that truth, you honor God, you honor your parents, and you honor the people around you. It's powerful. I'm big on the carnivore diet. Eat animal fat, eat animal protein. But the idea that's feeding that is that you are valuable and so am I. You matter. I matter. You're worth it. I'm worth it. And if I'm worth it, then you're worth it. And if anybody else on the planet is worth it, you then become worth it automatically because you're human. Now, economic value, definitely that's different. Right? If I learn how to be a very, very good entrepreneur and bring great value economically to the world around me, I am going to make more money than others who do not become economically more valuable to the world around them. Different. But your worth as a human being is equal. Doesn't matter what kind of money you got. I'm going to take a break here for a minute, and I'll be back in just a couple of minutes. I thank you for watching, and I won't be gone for very long. I'm going to just turn on a little stream video here that I usually have on the beginning of my videos, just so I can take a little break here, and I'll be right back. Gotta get that fixed. Do not like bending down like that and being out of frame. Well, just a quick little break. Just needed to do that. Get a little bit to drink and all that good stuff. I got some chicken soup. It's going to be a chicken pork soup that I'm cooking right now. I'm going to add a bunch of ingredients to it. It's going to be very good. Mm. I thought I had dealt with that. I have an ear that's popped. Okay. Let's see here. How does truth show up in everyday choices? What does it look like in real life? And this is simple stuff. Okay. Okay, hold on. When I say it's simple stuff, if we accept that God is real, that Christ is real, uh, popped ears. It's always some kind of distraction to keep me nice and distracted. Yeah. Okay. How does truth show up in everyday choices? What does it look like in real life? Truth will be ideas, concepts, rules, facts, so pieces of information that will be in harmony with reality. It just, and it just, come on, put the thought together, spit it out. It is things that show up constantly. Like right now, you are watching YouTube. And you're watching a YouTube that happens to be a live stream. And in this instance, right now, I would say that probably you're watching this after the fact. That's true. And you are gaining information from it. That's also true. And I'm stating things that are in harmony with what's actually taking place. I could also say you have watched videos on YouTube before, and there's information you've gained from videos in the past that was valuable to you. That's also true. So now I'm saying something about the past that is in harmony with reality. And this is what goes on all the time. If, on the other hand, you are presented with a piece of information that is not in harmony with reality, then that is a lie. Man, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody the way I'm phrasing this. But so often we believe things that are not in harmony with reality and we don't test to find out if something is true. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like how could I make an example here that would identify, like that would really show what I'm talking about. Okay. There is a movie coming out, and you take the word of a single critic that says the movie is no good, not worth watching, and so you skip it. You don't test to see is there anybody who did like the movie or thinks that the movie is worth watching. If you find that there's some people who don't like it and some people who do like it, you may need to just go watch it yourself to make your own decision to decide whether or not it's a good movie. If, on the other hand, you look at those who, like a myriad of different movie critics, and they all say this movie's no good, I would say that you're in a better position to decide, I'm not gonna bother with that. That then is safer for making the choice to not go watch that film, and there is a greater chance that what you have decided is based on truth. But if you don't experience it yourself, you are depending on somebody else. So one of the things I also do is I make sure that if I'm going to trust somebody, they have demonstrated their trustworthiness. A teacher that's at a university that I meet for the first time, that doesn't demonstrate anything as to whether or not that person speaks truth. It just means that the university likes this particular teacher, and that's it. That's what it demonstrates. It doesn't demonstrate their truthfulness or accuracy at all. So that means everything that that person teaches us, we need to test it to the very best of our ability. Now, maybe the person is speaking in say ancient science or ancient history, archaeology and stuff like that. So we may have to test it in a different way than, say, somebody who's taking a cooking class. A cooking class, you have greater access to testing everything that that teacher is teaching than somebody who's teaching history. But you still have access to testing what that history teacher is teaching. And the big one is, who disagrees with this idea? Not the teacher. The teacher doesn't matter. It's the idea. And when I'm making my choices, if I'm being faithful and I'm doing what I'm supposed to, I will also figure out who disagrees with the idea. Because I do try to understand what's the idea behind my choices so that I can then test it. If I'm just testing the choice itself, I'll argue that there are as many choices as there are people on the planet, and actually twice as many. The choices are infinite, but the principles and ideas behind the choices, they're finite. And that's what you test. And now, to get me back on track, what does it mean to be responsible, not just for your life, but for the truth you choose to believe? And I'm gonna put it, not the truth that you choose to believe. Instead, what does it mean to be responsible for your life? Not just your life, but for the truth. The truth. I'm trying to phrase this in such a way, I'm realizing that the way I've written this out, it's not quite right, because it's making it sound like there's more than one truth. But there's only one truth. There's only the truth. That's it. And as soon as you step away from the truth, you're not with truth anymore. There isn't another truth. So I've made that clear. So then, what does it mean to be responsible then for truth that I choose to believe and for my own life? I've had to learn that my life is not just affecting me, it affects everybody. And if you're 10 years old, 20 years old, your life affects the people around you. Absolutely, it does. And the choices that you make affect the lives of the people around you. Now, a 10-year-old affects very, very few, but they do affect. And if that 10-year-old can learn to make choices in harmony with the reality that their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister are of equal value as they are, their choices will be honorable choices. They'll be good choices. I'm saying this in such a simple way, but they're responsible. Their their choices will be responsible. And when a 10-year-old chooses to believe something, what they choose to believe is not only going to affect just them. Same idea. What about someone my age? Okay, or a 20-year-old. Let's go with a 20-year-old, right? Talking to 20-year-olds for today. Well, same thing. Your choices and what you're choosing to believe, about truth and what you understand to be true affects everybody around you. So now this is more, girlfriends, friends, maybe your job, customers, the businesses that you're building a business. If you build everything that you build and the choices that you make in harmony with the reality that everyone is of equal value to you, your choices, what you choose will be good for yourself and for them. Does that make sense? As I stumble around with this particular question, I should have given this a bit more thought. But when we make those choices, we have to do it in such a way so it doesn't undermine the other person's value as a human being. I'm not talking economically. That being said, if we're talking economically, the way that I do business must honor the human value of everybody I do business with, whether it's the customer, whether I'm purchasing from another business owner, whatever it is, the other person is of equal value. Now, that does not mean I allow them to walk all over me, because I am valuable too. You and I, we are of equal value. So the way that we engage with the world around us, they are valuable, but we must also remember we are valuable. We don't allow people to treat us as though we are not valuable. I'm not going to engage with that person. I'm not going to. Well, I guess I'll say I won't trust that person, and I'm going to be careful how I engage and interact with that person. That's a better way of saying it. Because at the end of the day, if somebody comes into my restaurant who doesn't like me but wants to have a meal and behaves in a civil manner, money's money. I'm not going to say no to that person. But if that person comes in and all of a sudden is very disrespectful to the staff, and maybe it's disrespectful to me, and they're just being terrible, well, I'm going to ask them to leave. Not because they're not valuable as a human being, but because I and my staff are valuable and the customers are valuable, and so they need to leave. And when it comes to the health, right? Same exact thing. I'm going to treat my body in a really good way because I do not want to burden the nurses, to burden the doctors, to burden my, I was going to say wife. I don't have a wife anymore. That's a story. Anyways, but to burden my wife, my girlfriend, my mother, my father. I don't want to burden these people with my health. So I need to treat this like, I was going to go with the temple. I'm going to treat this like a temple. That's a different conversation. But that it's valuable and that this matters. You matter. And so if we can stay healthy until we're 115 years old, all of a sudden we take care of ourselves all the way up until the day we die. And there'll be some burden, but it's minimal burden in comparison to all the value that we have given to the world around us. Does that make sense? So what lies did I believe at 20 that nearly destroyed my health and my confidence? Okay, so this is the controversial part, because I have touched on this already, right? But now I'm going to get really specific. And that is, I believed that I had to declare what I believe. I had to declare in my words what is true in order to be accepted by the people around me. And I never tested what I was being taught. And so I believed that carbohydrates were good for you as long as you got the right ones. So I never was convinced that macaroni and cheese was good for you. I just like it, right? I just like it. And I was never convinced that a hamburger was good for you, though I'd talk to myself and be like, well, it's got lettuce, fresh onions, fresh tomatoes. Those are good for you, so it's not that bad. And so I believed that I could talk my way around doing things that were less than healthy for myself, because I would justify it to myself. I would reason it to myself to do the things I knew I really shouldn't be doing. Now, my mind about hamburgers now is that it's the meat patty is good for you, and the rest of it is in question, especially the carbohydrate, whether that was a whole wheat bun or just white bread. I'll argue that's not good for you. But here's the thing: I was in the habit of justifying it. Well, it's not that bad. Well, I've only had a hamburger once this week. Or twice this week, or 3 times this week, right? As I progressed and I had more money, and I was buying from the store restaurants more often. I just justified it. So I believed that basically, if I ate in a more balanced way, I wasn't conscious of being balanced so much as it was what I would talk to myself like. I haven't eaten that much of it. Well, it's okay this time. Well, I don't have a choice this time, right? Those kind of things. That's a lie. As I stumble here, you always have a choice. I always have a choice. And here's one of the big ones that we never consider. We could choose just not to eat until we can get what we need to eat. And I think about somebody with allergies. Let's pretend that the person with allergies goes to a dinner and the people there are serving peanuts, and this person's allergic to peanuts. I don't mean deathly allergic to the smell, they're just allergic to peanuts. Guess what they're not doing at that meal that night? Eating. They're going to have to eat later on. It is true that your body can survive for many days, in fact, without food. I don't have to eat. I do have a choice. I really do. I also believed that I have to have plants in order to be healthy. Pick it, carrots, oranges. I have that in order to be healthy. And I guess I lost a signal here. Yep, I did. Okay. Anyways, I believed that I had to have plants in order to be healthy. I now know that's not true. I've been on a carnivore diet for the last 2 years, and I have not needed to consume plants in order to maintain my health. I also believed that vegetarian and vegan was the epitome of health, of healthy eating. I shouldn't say the epitome of health, but of healthy eating. I now totally disagree with that. I think that is a lie. That's my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I do not have authority on this subject. It is just what I have been learning. And I recommend test these ideas. Don't just take my word for it. And then finally, there's a big one. Just taking the word of those who were in a position of authority or a position of influence. Like the pastor, that's a position of influence, right? The president of the United States, the prime minister of Canada, that's a position of power, right? The police officer, position of power. I believed, without question, whoever was in authority and who had positions of influence. There was no questioning. Give me a minute here. Well, it looks like my ear is just not going to cooperate. Grr! It's very distracting. It's popped. And I hear my voice in an odd way, and I don't like it. It's like, please stop being popped. I'm not even living that high off the ground. And off the ground. Well, I live in a house, but I'm not that far away from the ocean. It's not that much of an elevation, but my ear is absolutely popped. Grr! All right. Uh, yeah, and I'm saying like, okay, so this destroyed my health and my confidence, and the thing is like, yeah, I didn't believe that I was educated. Well, okay, so I do not have much of an education, right? So then that leads me to believe, that has led me to believe that I don't have much authority, and I can't talk on a lot of subjects, right? That's what I have believed, and I still struggle with this. I still struggle with this because it's like, well, who am I? Who am I to say anything, right? Like, what what am I? What do I know? And I hear us talking like this quite a bit, and especially when I was 20, I really believed this. There's the opposite of this, though, where somebody will be 20 years old and they think they know it all, right? There's these two extremes. And I've come to understand that both extremes are unhealthy. One, you do have something to offer, you know some stuff. And really, going to university, going to high school, and that type of stuff gives you a kind of knowledge, okay? And so you're able to talk. But here's the thing, keep learning, keep studying. And nowadays, I mean, you've got access to knowledge like no generation has ever had access. Like myself, I I go onto YouTube. I'm like, study, learn, listen to the professional, listen to some average guy like myself who's willing to come and talk on YouTube about something. And instead of just focusing on content that is just entertaining, which there ain't nothing wrong with entertainment. After this, later tonight, I'm going to be watching one of two things. It's either going to be That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I love that cartoon. One of my favorites. Anime, I'm sorry. Or I'm going to be watching one of these movies here. And I've got a couple. Which one is it now? Oh, yeah. I'm trying to decide between Maverick. I've got to fix this camera because everything's backwards. Or Braveheart. Look at that. It's all backwards. Oh, I hate that. But I don't know how to fix that yet. I'm working with OBS. I have so much to learn. Okay. So there's nothing wrong with entertainment. Nothing. And you don't always have to be learning something. I mean, one of the things that's killing the video game industry is because people are trying to put teaching lessons within the video game. It's like one of the challenges with Christians, and I love Jesus Christ and I am a Christian, but they'll make a movie or they'll make a video game and it has to have some kind of teaching lesson in it. It's like, yes, the Bible is full of Jesus Christ teaching, but there were times when Jesus Christ was not teaching. One of the big ones is when he went to the wedding ceremony early on in his ministry, and he turned water into wine. He didn't talk about it at the wedding there and say, okay, now here's the object lesson. Nah, they were having a party. He helped them out. No big deal. So there's nothing wrong with entertainment, but you have access now, like no generation has, to expanding your knowledge, listening to professors who otherwise you would have to spend thousands of dollars to get to listen to. And I know he's controversial. I've mentioned several controversial people in this stream, but Dr. Robert Kennedy, also controversial, totally awesome guy. That's not the name I'm looking for. Psychologist, Canadian psychologist, Dr. Peter Dr. Jordan Peterson. There we go. You know, before all the controversy, you would have had to spend thousands of dollars to be exposed to what this man has to say and to his education that he can then condense and share. That's all on the internet, on YouTube. And I mean, now he's started that school where for a fraction of the cost, you can turn around and go online and learn from amazing teachers. But YouTube is for free. Go learn. Go become an expert on something. You can do that. You don't have to be 50, 60, 70 years old. But let me talk to anybody who is 50, 60, or 70 years old. And I'm going to make a video about this. You're allowed to learn too. You don't have to stick with just what you believe. And this is something I'm having to learn. I can learn more. But you're 20, keep learning. Your learning does not end at the end of university or the end of high school or wherever you happen to be. A lot of us men, and this is people in general, but men, will throw away our health for short-term pleasure or for ideological belonging. Right? I talked about this before, where the vegan diet is often promoted by those who have ideological motives, whether it's Christian or like religious Seventh-day Adventists. They're ideologically driven, though they will tack on health. Their first priority is actually ideology, right? Or if you're being approached by and taught by someone from the far left, they're again ideologically driven. The health might get tacked on there at the end, but they're ideologically driven. Or there's those of us who are just focused on now. I want to feel good now. I don't want to feel good tomorrow. I can't even imagine being 50 years old. I'm 20, for crying out loud. 50 is like forever away. And so we start making choices to get pleasurable and positive experiences right now. And we end up throwing our health away. And there's you 30 years from now, 40 years from now, who is depending upon the choices that you make today. Buddy, you're not judging yourself like, oh, you're no good, so much as you and I, well, no, I can't say myself. Obviously, I'm at the other end of this. But like when I was 20, I should have focused on trying to find out how to have a successful 50th later life, a successful later life. Because one day you are going to be 50. And there's a lot of people that would like you to be here, not only so that they can receive from you, but so that they can give to you and you can receive. But if we don't take care of ourselves, 50 is hard to reach. But if we do take care of ourselves, 90 is completely possible. And you can have a rich life all the way until you're 90. Rich in relationships, rich in experiences, rich in possibilities, rich in freedom, rich in ability. But a lot of us throw this away because we've either been convinced to believe in an ideology, or the future feels so far away and we do not connect to the older generations around us when we're young. Now, I was spared this because a lot of the churches that I attended as a kid were older, so I was surrounded by older people. But the problem is they felt sorry for me and I felt like I was a victim. And technically, yes, I was. But feeling like a victim and being a victim did not give me any benefit for the future. And so I never sought to learn, sought to grow. Don't think that you're a victim. Or you can recognize, yes, I'm a victim today, but I will not be a victim tomorrow. This happened to me today, but it's not happening to me tomorrow. And I'm going to grow, live, and become better despite what has happened to me. So many of us, I mean, how many of us are dealing with massive health problems that you didn't choose? You didn't choose to have a heart attack. And yes, there are so many young 20-year-olds that are having that. You didn't choose to be obese. You didn't choose to have cancer. You didn't choose to have diabetes. These were not choices that you made. But do not live like you're a victim in this. And there are so many ways that we can be looked at as victims. And a lot of times it's coming from ourselves. And then we project that and others react to us like we are a victim. If you can project that you have great ability, that you have great value, that you have great worth, and that you have something to offer this world, others will respond to you that way. Now, there will be those who will try to tear you down because they don't believe in you. But you will also attract those who do believe in you, who think the same way, that you have something of value to offer this world. And taking care of your health, and taking care of your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your spirit, and making sure that that's healthy and not letting anything stand in the way of that is worth it. It's so worth it. Yes, it happened to you. Whatever it is, it really happened to you. I'm not mocking you. What I went through, it happened to me. It totally did. But it's not happening to you now. Or maybe it is happening to you right now, but you do not have to be a slave to that which is happening to you today. Don't let it rule your life. You rule your life. Choosing to live healthy, choosing to take care of your body, choosing to take care of your spirit, choosing to take care of your mind, choosing to take care of your environment will free you from the prison you find yourself in sometimes, or even right now. You can be free. You do not have to be a victim. You do not have to stay a victim. And what happened to you yesterday is not happening to you today. And the only way that which happened to you yesterday has powerful power over you today is that you choose to allow it to be there. Yes, it happened to you. I'm not mocking you. I am not mocking you. It really happened to you. And you pick the circumstances. Right? I'm shying away from some of the circumstances I like to name, but I'll just say it that way. Pick the circumstances. It's real, but it has no power over you if you choose that because you are human. Oh man, I'm preaching. I really believe this. This is something that hit me. Man, I don't know how long ago. I don't remember an event where this idea hit me. But okay, I grew up in a really bad circumstance. I really did. And that dictated what I believed about myself. It dictated the passion that I had for myself, which was none. It dictated my belief in what I was capable of. It dictated so much because I was a slave to that which I was in. And I couldn't make my own choices. I couldn't make my own choices because I was a victim and I had nothing to offer this world. I was wrong. And anybody who believes that right now, they're wrong. They're wrong. And I'm not talking about evil that we have done. I'm going to argue that's a different conversation. I probably should make a live stream about that. But, or a video maybe, but just the victim part of things, right? When you choose not to be a victim anymore, then you're not. No matter what it is that's happened to you. And that's not to cheapen, that's not to take away, that's not to disregard what you have been through. It doesn't disregard it. It just means that you will not be, you're not going to be a slave. And I don't take that word lightly either. And I'm referencing the American kind of slave. I'm not talking about ancient slavery because that's also a very different thing. I'm talking about the kind of slavery that is practiced today in the world and the type of slavery that happened in America in the past. You didn't have no freaking choice, and there was no freaking way you were getting out of it. But you can get out of it. You have the ability and you have the power right now to get out of that. And I know normally I speak on health and nutrition. I get that. I get that. But yeah, it's no different. If you believe that you do not have a choice but to be overweight and to eat the food that you eat that keeps you overweight, what's going to happen? Gotta block that thing again. I'm staring at it, totally distracted. There we go. No distractions. No distractions. What happens when you follow people blindly instead of testing what they say? Yeah, I talked about that already. Still got my work cut out for me to make these scripts better. But you know what happens? You end up becoming what they are, or that you end up becoming what they project you to be, or they you also end up becoming that which you. How do I say this? How do I say this? You end up becoming that which they fear, hate, warned you about. All that happens when you just go blind. Because even if they're giving you good information, you can't see the bad information for what it is. And so if enough people believe that which is wrong around you, you will take on that belief because you never tested the beliefs that you believe that were right. And I see this happening. I see this happening. I mean, oh my goodness, do I see this happening? I'm trying to think of an example that's not too political. Trying to think of an example that's not too political. Well, you know what? Let's go back to my health, the health and nutrition and cooking vegetables. One of the things that got talked about at my dinner table on Thanksgiving, and we were talking about how food gets cooked and that most people do not know how to cook vegetables properly so that they taste good. Right? That was a conversation. I didn't say nothing, kept my mouth shut because my beliefs around vegetables and what they're good for and why they were cooked the way they were cooked and all that kind of stuff have changed dramatically. And they got talking about Brussels sprouts, right? And Brussels sprouts used to be known for their horrible flavor. It had a terrible flavor. And and there was two things that changed the flavor of Brussels sprouts in our world and then here at home. These two things. One, there the what changed for everybody is that researchers got busy and tried to figure out why Brussels sprouts tasted so bad. And they went about breeding the Brussels sprouts to remove the chemical that caused the Brussels sprouts to be so bad. But how the cooking worked is that they would cook the Brussels sprouts to death and then some, and then that would get served to the children and to the family, and they ate it. And what made it taste so bad is when it got cooked at that level, when it got cooked to that degree, it released a certain chemical, and that chemical was terribly distasteful. And so breed, get rid of that specific chemical, and oh, now you can cook it to death, and it's not going to taste as bad. And then the second thing is that in this household and many households, they started to cook the vegetables a lot less and started leaving a lot more crunch and life in the vegetable to make them taste better. Baking them instead of boiling them to death, maybe they would steam them, things like that, right? And this changed the flavor as well. Also, what flavors got added to the Brussels sprouts and every other vegetable. Question: why did people boil the absolute living life out of vegetables back in the day? How come? Like, why? What, were they so stupid they couldn't tell that the fresh food tasted better than the boiled, baked to death food that they were serving their families? I learned about this. No, it had nothing to do with that. These people were smart. And they cooked the food like that for very important reasons. Plants, if you are anywhere in the carnivore community or informed as a vegetarian, you know Dr. Anthony Chaffee, who is very famous for saying plants are trying to kill you. It does not benefit the plant or the animal to be eaten. It benefits us. We get benefit from that, not the animal, not the plant. The animal can run away or fight us. They can come at us and beat us up and say, heck no, I'm not dinner for you tonight. But the plant, what can it do? It can't run away and it can't beat us up. It's absolutely stationary and there's nothing that it can do to stop us from the immediate taking from it and eating it. So how do they protect themselves? Chemically. Like corn has compounds, I'll just say compounds within it to protect you from getting the niacin. I think it's niacin that's in corn to keep it from being nutritious to you. It also ends up blocking other nutrients that might be in the food that you're eating with it. And so if you did that regularly, eventually you'd stop eating corn because it keeps you from getting the nutrition that you need. So is it the Mayan? I think it was the Mayan. Those in South America, I think it was the Mayan people, but I forget. Inca, the Mayan, I'm not sure. But they discovered how to chemically treat the corn to be able to get it to unbind and release the nutrients that it has, plus cook it to death. And they ate it that way. That's how they used it. When that corn was brought over to the East, out in Europe, the corn caused some major problems because I guess they didn't know about that process. And so the corn ended up not being all that nutritious. And I guess there were some diseases that broke out because of that corn or something to that effect. My history knowledge on that is a little lacking. We today have decided that we don't cook our food to death because we think it tastes better, but they cooked it to death back then because it was the only way to make it safe. That's where pickling came from. That's where fermenting the fruit and vegetables came from, was to destroy the compounds, to break down those poisons, to extract poisons from the food so that it could actually be eaten. I shouldn't say food, but from the plants. That's why they cooked it to death. And that stayed all the way up until the knowledge was lost within the modern world. The modern world lost that knowledge because everything became packaged and we were less connected to the history, less connected to generations past, and believed the advertising that was being pushed upon us to get us to eat ultra processed foods. And so then we started to cook our food less. So to answer the question that was asked at the dinner table for Thanksgiving here in Canada, because we have an early Thanksgiving in comparison to America, people cooked the food to death because that was the only way to make it safe to eat. Brussels sprouts happened to release a particular chemical that made them taste terrible if you did that. But it was done to make the vegetables edible. And I guess in England, one of the reasons why the food was cooked the way that it was is that it's what they had access to. Lots of water, not a lot of spices. And so they had to cook it the way that they did, and they cooked it to death so that they could eat it. They pickled it, they fermented it so that they could eat it. That's amazing. So our knowledge today in the West, in the way that we treat food, is not necessarily more knowledgeable. We've just gotten a bit better at tasting, like getting the food to taste really good. And admittedly, GMO, genetically modified organism practices, and horticulture, using breeding, the crossbreeding of plants to get the food to taste better, has also made food more or plants more edible. but it hasn't made them more nutritious. Ultra processed foods are not more nutritious. They're just more edible, if that makes any sense. How do seed oils, sugars, fake foods fit into this bigger pattern of deception? So I thought it was going to be in a specific part of this conversation, but I'll bring it to this. The big deception was that the ultra processed foods were necessary for good health. And we needed those ultra processed foods to get to really, really good health. And nobody questioned the advertising that was being put onto the radio and onto the television and into the movies, or before the movies, and actually even into the movies. Nobody questioned it because it came from a place that looked like authority. And since it's authority, and we've been trained since the 1800s, 1700s, I forget when the modern school system began. Maybe it was even before that. No, it was at the Industrial Revolution, the modern school system, and it was designed to make really good employees, not to teach you how to think, how to ask questions, how to think critically, how to figure out truth, how to figure out what truth is, and all that kind of stuff. It was never designed for that. It was designed to make you a really good factory worker, which, if you've ever seen big corporations with a room full of computers and people sitting at a computer, it is no different than an assembly line. Make a good employee. We were never taught how to think critically. Where did those big advertisers, where did those big businesses get this information that we should believe that the pork, bacon fat, beef fat, chicken, duck, lamb, goat, all this stuff that our ancestors ate is suddenly now bad for us? And that the best is the seed oils, sugar, and, pardon me, but fake foods is now suddenly good for us, like fake milk. Almond milk is now suddenly what your body needs? A product that has never existed in human history until these very recent modern times? Whether you believe in a 6,000-year-old Earth or a 4.5 billion-year-old Earth, humans consuming fake milk is but a breath in comparison, or a blip in time in comparison to the amount of time where humans never consumed such things. Fake meat? Like, we've never consumed that. And now suddenly, it's essential for our health? I mean, whether you give the credit to God or evolution, both seem to figure out that what we needed in order to survive and thrive, the most dominant species on the planet. I know there's some people that'll argue about bacteria, but bacteria seems to have not even kicked our butt. Because even when big bacteria come along and kill a bunch of us off, we're still 8 billion strong, and it's moving to 9 billion here soon. We're the most dominant species. And now suddenly we need all this fake food? Or ultra processed foods like cereal? Cereal never existed before the Industrial Revolution. And I know some people say, well, people ate oats and stuff like that. Poor people ate oats. Slaves ate oats. And animals, the livestock ate oats, wheat, and stuff like that. The rich, the wealthy, they didn't eat that kind of stuff. You know, one of the reasons why fat, like fatty food, is called rich, it's not because somehow you feel wealthier or that word suddenly describes it so well. It's that the wealthy people were the ones who could afford food like that. So it was called rich. It eventually got the food that was super fatty got the title of being rich because the rich could afford that. And what makes you sick is not the fat, but all the carbohydrates that are in that fat, that fatty food. It was sugars and carbohydrates and stuff like that. That's what makes you fat and overweight and sick and all that kind of good stuff. The animal fat itself, that's good for you, but the rich could afford it, where the poor couldn't. You know, if you were living within the city and you were dependent upon the system to get you the food, you were eating a lot of plants. because that was the only thing that was affordable. And then I put this question in here. What happens when your diet is based on fear instead of truth? Well, the reality is you become sick, because fear is what's teaching you. So you're not going to question, you're not going to challenge, you're not going to investigate, you're not going to try to figure it out and pull it apart and think, ooh, what's this, what's that? Because fear tells you to get small and protect yourself, right? You're like, oh man, I'm not going that way. I'm not doing that because I'm afraid. And so then they can use that fear against you to get you to do whatever they want so you can feel safe. Those who are not afraid, and those who are well informed, and those who feel empowered are very difficult to deceive and very difficult to control. And then I added this question: how does the desire for approval keep men trapped in bad choices? I mean, like, especially if you're trapped in an ideology, you can't question the prevailing ideology because it's of supreme authority. And unlike Christians who are allowed to question, true Christians, biblical Christians are totally allowed to question the God of heaven and Jesus Christ, are totally allowed to question. Every other ideology really frowns on that, especially world-based religions and ideologies. You cannot question. They use fear, and then you have to say the right things and believe the right things to get the community's approval. So you never step outside of the community. You never step outside of that approved of belief. And so you're stuck. You're trapped. And I mean, if it's not ideological, like if you've been more focused on just like, self pleasure, just food wise and entertainment and stuff like that, well, then the community that you have built up around you, that you have attracted around you, if you were to suddenly make a whole bunch of brand new choices that are antithetical to the lifestyles of those friends that you have, you're going to lose those friends. And then fear steps in and goes, what friends would I have? What friends could I get? Or at the very least, I would lose the approval and authority and influence and approval that I've gained so far. What would you do? And so the fear and the ideology and the community keeps us trapped. And we've never been taught how to ask questions, why to ask questions, how to identify truth, what is truth. We've never been taught how to think, how to believe, how to understand. It's all what. And so you get trapped. I was no different. Oh, yeah. And a lot of us, we get trapped in this thinking of like tomorrow. What do I mean? I always have tomorrow. When we're young, we really think that tomorrow is guaranteed. And it's not a conscious thought per se, but it's because we've never thought about our mortality and how fragile life is. Tomorrow feels guaranteed. It's not even a thought. And even at my age, I do count on tomorrow, but I am more aware that tomorrow is not guaranteed. So if I wish, so today is the day I should make the choices that I know I should make, and not wait till tomorrow. And that eventually there is no more tomorrow. It will happen. Either we're killed, we die prematurely, or eventually we will just plain get old and you run out of tomorrows. And this is a challenge for a lot of us, especially when we're young, because we feel safe, because the end of tomorrows is so far away that we feel safe in making silly choices now that we know are not best for us, but it's cool because I can shake it off. I got tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? It's not. This is not about fear. It's not about that. It's not about that. Um, so much as when you build up enough bad todays, it will wreck your tomorrow, and eventually, yeah, you got bad health. Why? Because so many todays that you did, you made all the choices that really were satisfying you for that day, and now you're in tomorrow, and your body doesn't have any more to offer. You know what I'm saying? And don't get afraid. It's not about fear. It's not about fear. Remembering, I was saying, like, you don't have to be a victim. Something may have victimized you today. Tomorrow, you're not a victim anymore, right? And so, okay, I made a bunch of bad choices, but today I'm making good ones. You know what I'm saying? And get informed, know what you're talking about, understand how to test those in authority and those of influence. Now, I influence. I barely anybody shows up to my live stream, but there is influence. We all have it, and test it. Just because someone says something doesn't make it true. You've heard that before. There's nothing new there. Yeah, there's this one. As I was, putting this together, um, I've noticed that a lot of young people believe that they only matter if they belong to some kind of label or group or movement. And you see this in the news, or especially if you follow a lot of independent news. Um, Conservative news really puts a spotlight on this problem politically, but it's all over the place. Um, we since we've been told what to believe and we've been told what to think and all that kind of stuff, we're really susceptible to falling for anything, and we don't have any personal value that we understand. So we get our value from the things that we believe in and the communities that we are a part of. So, like, as a Seventh-day Adventist, I felt valuable. I felt a value because I believed all the right things and I really knew the truth that was in the Bible that was specifically taught, and the Adventist church had the truth. And I believed that. And so that made me special, which is another our it's our way of saying I'm valuable, right? And so all of a sudden you see a lot of these groups popping up, and young people who will go to the grave for what they believe and believe that anybody who doesn't believe what they believe are deceived, like they're bad people. You're not you're not a bad person because you believe certain things. Our actions can be bad, but you believe certain things, it's just different, right? Well, see, I'm trying to phrase this the right way. You being a bad person is more on your actions, right? If you believe in things that are not true, then you believe things that are not true. That's what that means. You have value without being a part of a group, a movement, or having some kind of label on your head. You don't need those things to be valuable. Your value is derived from what you are, a human being. And I ultimately connect that value to Jesus Christ, our creator, right? Our value comes from him. And since he is our value, the source of our value, you cannot be anything other than valuable, equal to every other human being on the planet. And your worth and your identity comes from what you choose to believe and what you choose to stand for, not the labels, not the groups, not the movements. I may choose to join a movement because I agree with what they're talking about, but I stand on my own already about this thing, and that movement is addressing a problem and what they're addressing, I'm in line with it. I'm like, oh yeah, I agree with that movement, and yeah, so I support that movement, or I will be a part of that movement, or something like that. But they don't define my value, they don't define my worth, and they don't define who I am. I've already defined that, and you can begin this definition. Like a lot of people, like, who am I? Well, start with your name. Start with where you're from. You are the child of your parents, whoever they may be. That does not define your worth. It just defines the who. Then what do you stand for? Not what are you against. Define Knowing you're against this, that, or the other thing, that doesn't define you. It doesn't. It's what do you stand for? Like myself, I believe in your intrinsic worth, and I believe that one of the ways your intrinsic worth and value are expressed is through taking control of your health. That's why I stand up here and I talk to you and I believe in you, and I do the live streams. It's because I believe in your health. I believe in your value. And I believe that you are worthy to be healthy and to be here on this earth. And I do not agree in any way, shape, or form that there's too many people on the planet. I don't agree with that. Now, a part of what influences that belief is my belief in Jesus Christ, my belief in God, and I follow him, right? But I also just, listening to people who know what they're talking about, going, yeah, there's plenty of resources for people once we learn how to handle the resources properly. A lot of us who are in our 20s, we get to feeling that our belief, pardon me, that being ourselves is not enough. Now there's a real like, how do I say, a disharmony here. There are those who believe that, okay, you're perfect just the way you are. You don't need to change. There's nothing about you that's imperfect. You're perfect the way you are. Right now, I accept you. You don't need to change, right? And there's that. But then that gets hit with, you have to say this, you have to believe this, you have to believe this, you have to believe this, you must say this, and this is what you have to agree with, and this is what you have to agree with. So in your character and in your morality, oh, you're just fine as long as you believe this. Okay, Rodney, but what about Christians? Do they not teach the same idea? You are valuable and you are worthy to be in a relationship with Jesus Christ right now. And your health is worthy of your attention right now, even though you may not believe what I believe. And you may not even know Jesus Christ all that well. You're still worthy of it right now. And then once you get into harmony with Jesus Christ, or get into a relationship with Jesus Christ, and you start learning how to learn and how to understand and all that kind of stuff, you will change on the way, becoming more like the one you follow and more like the ones you surround yourself with. You're going to change. And your value as a human being is already enough. You don't need to somehow try to be more valuable as a human being to be accepted within the human race. If any type of value needs a change, it's our contribution to society that will grow. And my contribution in Christian circles will grow as I spend time in the Word and with the Lord, with Jesus Christ. So I'll grow in my contribution to other people, but you are enough in your value as a human being right now. You don't need to change to be accepted. And so then this means that you should already accept your own value as a human being already and take care of it. Just take care of it. So I am suggesting that yes, we do need to change and we do need to become better in our character. And that those who say you do not need to change, you're perfect just the way you are, you're enough just the way you are, they do not live that out. The truth is, who you are, where you come from, that's cool. What you choose to stand for, that does matter. Take the time to figure it out. And it's going to be a lifetime process. There are things I stood for years ago I no longer stand for today. And the things I stand for today are not the things I stood for before. Not everything, but many things. And same will happen for you. Your worth and value is not tied to the group you're a part of. It's tied to Jesus Christ. And I'm emphasizing this, I'm repeating it over and over and over again. Your value and your worth is not tied to what you believe. But you're being taught everywhere, entertainment, universities, friends, family, everywhere, that you have to believe the right things and belong to the right group and all that kind of stuff in order to be a good person, in order to be a good thing. I disagree. Your worth, your value, and what makes you a good thing is the fact that you're human. That doesn't mean that somehow you automatically are doing good things. That's a different conversation. Just that you're a good thing. Money is a good thing. But if it gets misused, it can be misused for things that are bad, right? Money in itself is a good thing. A hammer is a good thing. A baseball, it's a good thing. But you could use it in a bad way. And that's what I mean for you. You're a good thing. You can do bad things, but that fundamental thing about you, first and foremost, humans are a good thing. In a lot of ways, society has got us believing that we need to belong to matter more than becoming. Okay, so you've got good health, you've got good, let's just stick with that. You have good health, right? So that means you then belong to the good health crowd, right? And that your health matters because you're part of the good health crowd. What if you decide to reject the good health crowd? You just don't want to be part no more. Well, then you would end up our society, especially, and I'm talking about how education is brought to us and the way that information is brought to us through churches and media and the education system and even the government. If you're going to reject this, then you're automatically a part of that. America became what it is in its idea with the idea that the individual matters more than the institution. And that the individual must be protected more than the institution. And the institution gets value from protecting the individual's worth. What matters much, much more is who you're going to be. You see, it's easier for society to control people when they value being a part of the right institutions than becoming a good person. A good person's very hard to control, very hard. But if you can convince that person that no, in order to be good, you've got to belong to this group, this organization, this ideology, that kind of thing, way easier to control. What does it mean to become a good human? What does it mean to become a good person? What does it mean to become valuable to humanity. You're a valuable thing already. You are valuable. How do you realize that value within society? I think one of the ways that begins is taking care of what you've been given, your body, your mind, and your spirit, and bringing it into harmony, or no, altering your actions to come into harmony with that truth. And I think that bringing yourself in relationship to the one who created you, that gives you that value, is one of the ways that we come into harmony with the reality that you're valuable. Does that make sense? Right now, this is something I believe, but don't just take my word for that. Test it, study it. Is it true? What kind of outcomes does it get? You know, what are the outcomes? When we stop asking, who am I, but instead always ask, which side am I on, we get deceived so fast. We get deceived so fast. I hear this line all the time. I want to be on the right side of history. What do you stand for? What are you in harmony with? Okay, the controversy doesn't exist, right? There is no controversy, right? There is no health message. I'm not here talking about health, nothing like that, okay? And you separate yourself from that and just standing on your own. Who are you? What do you stand for? You define that. Then I come along with my big old message. Hello, message. You'll be able to decide, do I stand with that? Do I stand for that? Is that what I want to be a part of? You will not accidentally fall for anything. You will deliberately stand for certain things. And if you're in harmony with reality, you will constantly be on the right side of history. Those who fought against slavery stood for the Constitution of the United States of America. And they believed that every man is created equal and that it is wrong for any man to own another man. That was a conversation that started in the United States back in the 1600s. So when the conversation began, those who knew what they stood for ended up on the correct side of history. Those who hung on to and clung on to selfish things for immediate pleasure, immediate ease, I want what I want and I want it now, ended up on the wrong side of history. What I'm teaching on this channel, the health, nutrition, I'm going to be getting into this too a lot more. This self-improvement. You'll end up on the correct side of history without having to be afraid, because you're going to stand with reality instead of standing for ideology. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I hope that's really making sense. I've got this question here that I added. How can men honor community without losing their identity? I will argue, know what you stand for. Like, one of the things I stand for, morality, is not defined by mankind. Mankind cannot define morality. I stand for that. So then if I came to a community that went ahead and said, we define morality, boom, I don't stand with them anymore. Or forget about it anymore. I don't stand with them at all. Truth is not defined by mankind. Truth is defined by truth itself. That's what defines truth. Okay, so that means then if I come into a community that's saying we define truth, I don't stand with them. and I don't lose my identity. Okay, so I stand for those two things. There's many more things I stand for, but those two things. Now, when I come to a community that says morality is defined by God, not by mankind, truth is defined by God, not by mankind, I go, oh, that's interesting. How'd you guys come to that conclusion? And now I might find myself getting closer to that community because I know I stand for those two things. They are in harmony with me. And then I try to be in harmony with truth and reality. So I don't define those two things, but I will not align myself with those that are not in harmony with that which I'm already in harmony with. Does that make sense? And then if they want me to adopt a new idea, I'm going to test that idea against reality. Other people who have adopted this idea, what have been their results? And I don't want them picking it for me per se. They'll accept some of them. Like, okay, well, I'll check out Bob, Joe, and George. But then I'm also going to check for my own Bob, Joe, and George. What's true? Did they get the results that I would want? I listen to Myron Golden on YouTube. Why? Because he's getting results I want. And he talks in harmony with things I already stand on. So I'm like, okay, Myron, yeah, you got my ear. I'm listening. And sometimes Myron says a couple of things I disagree with, but that's cool. Because fundamentally, morally, that kind of thing, we're in harmony. That's cool, right? Because just because somebody doesn't agree with every little thing that I believe doesn't necessarily mean I reject them. They've got to be fundamentally in disharmony with me. Then I can't give them much attention. Though I have found that truth can be declared by liars, and when a liar does declare the truth, I will believe the truth. I still don't believe the liar, though. Does that make sense? So I wrote down for myself, what's one lie about food, health, or success I wish someone had corrected for me years ago. Here's a big one. You must not believe things because people of authority say it. Does that make sense? I've stated this in different ways already tonight, but I'm going to say it really strong now, very specifically. I must not believe things simply because people of authority say so, whether that authority comes from influence or their titles that they have. They've been to university and stuff like that. Test everything, and here's how to do it. And I wish I'd been shown how to test ideas and test information and test it. My belief about eating meat was defined by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Seventh-day Adventist Church defined what was healthy and unhealthy for me. Then I accepted other additions to that idea that came from not the church, but came from plant-based enthusiasts. And so, like, don't eat lard, don't eat tallow, don't eat duck tallow and things like that. Eat margarine. Don't eat butter. Eat margarine. Cook with oil. I now know that stuff, oil and margarine, are very, very unhealthy. Very unhealthy. Right? And that's slowly coming out. Like there's quite a few people that are talking about that now. But wouldn't it have been nice if I had known how to test that information? And how information, like what makes a good study? And how did they come to the conclusion that margarine is what we should eat and not butter? Like, how'd they get that conclusion? Where'd that come from? And what were the studies that led them to say that? And what were the studies that disagreed with that? What were the scientists that disagreed with that? Because there really isn't much like scientific consensus. That's not really how science works. Science is supposed to be constantly testing everything including what has already been established. Science, when it's in its truest form, will continue to test the theory of gravity. A lot of people say, oh, it's a fact, it's a fact. It's a theory. Test it. Does it still hold up under scrutiny? With new techniques, new knowledge, new understanding, is it true? Or is there new things that we now can understand that helps us to understand, oh my goodness, we don't understand gravity? Or maybe gravity doesn't exist. We need to give it a new name because it's a new thing. And I'm not saying that the world is flat or that gravity doesn't exist. I'm not saying that. So much as we should always be testing even that which we think is true. And I wish I had learned that when I was a kid. Learned, test it, test it, test it. Seventh-day Adventists believe that you should not eat pork, and that pork is bad for you from the very time that the children of Israel got the command till today. It's always been bad for you. Where'd they get that idea from? Is it true that the children of Israel were told not to eat pork because God decided it or identified that pork is bad for you? And that was the reason why the children of Israel were denied pork and shrimp and lobster and clams and mice. I know who's going to want to eat a mouse. I get it. But did God forbid that because it was bad food? Or was it something else? And maybe it really was just bad food. Maybe that's really what it was. But is that in the Bible? Does that make sense? Like this is the claim. This is where they're getting the idea from. This is what influenced to this conclusion. And it does mean more work. But one of the things I'm learning also is as you gain more knowledge, as you come to understand more and more and more, you'll start to be able to automatically go, that's a bunch of poppycock. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true, because you know so much, you can automatically and immediately identify things. And it gets easier. It does. It really does get easier. I'm skipping through because I'm realizing I'm running long. I was going for 2.5 hours. I'm now at 2 hours and 42 minutes. I picked a topic that I'm really passionate about. So now it's like, shoot, I gotta hurry up. And oh man, this live stream is 5 hours long, and I think there's like one person looking at this. You're a very faithful viewer. Thank you for sticking around for this long. The failures that are going to come in your life are valuable teaching moments, learning moments, right? Just because you can identify truth and you can identify, how to think and how to learn and all that kind of stuff, now that kind of information, you're still going to screw up, right? It doesn't inoculate you from making mistakes. Now that's still going to happen, but now you can use them. You see, if you're part of an ideology and you've been told what to think, and you suddenly by accident think the wrong thing or do the wrong thing in disharmony with what you're supposed to think, you are in big trouble. And there's nothing to learn from that except don't do it again. That's it. Which is a baby's way of approaching the world. The baby only knows rules and getting in trouble. A 12-year-old, no shade to 12-year-olds, I was one once, basically runs its life on don't get in trouble. That's basically it. And they have a hard time thinking theologically, philosophically, spiritually. They have a hard time with that. And so they basically, here's the rules, here's what I'm supposed to think, and they do that. And if they don't do that, they get in trouble. And that's basically how their world works, right? 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old. But there's a transition that takes place from, we'll just say childhood, adulthood. There's a bit of there's a major transition that takes place that starts to give you the ability to do more than just not get in trouble. But if we have been propagandized and deceived and taught bad things, we are kept in childhood. Don't ask questions. Think the right thing. And because you know what to do, do the right thing. Period. And I mean, I've seen it happen on YouTube. People will say, "Well, I believe X. I voted for X. I understand X," and they are absolutely attacked up to extremes. I'll give you Charlie Kirk and what happened to him. He didn't think what these people thought he should think, and so they took his life. If you are more working to be in harmony with reality and in harmony with truth, those who don't know what that is, we are far more gracious to, because it's learning. We're all on our own journey, learning as much as we can, as fast as we can, to the very best of our ability. And there is only the truth, and then there's our perception of the truth, and we're doing our best to be in harmony with that. We don't get it right all the time for all kinds of different reasons: ignorance, lack of discipline, everything in between. I shouldn't have done it, man. I know beer's no good for me, but everybody was having, situations come up. And I find that truth has more room for growth than ideology. You know what I'm saying? Work hard not to chase comfort. Work hard to grow so that you may become. It is way easier to believe everything you're supposed to believe when it is a very defined thing to believe. You have to believe this, you believe that, and it is a lot easier, you know. But one of the big challenges is that a lot of times beliefs are changing. I see that in the universities and in the the left ideology. It's constantly changing what you can and cannot believe, what you're supposed to believe, and stuff like that. But there is a comfort in just believing the right things and acting the right way, which has nothing to do with character and everything to do with just behavior. If that makes sense. Yeah. Where God tells you to stand for this and stand for that, and opens you up to a world of adventure and danger and risk, and it's much less comfortable, but the reward is far greater, far greater. And you will find yourself landing on the right side of history with that system, where if you are constantly just trying to seek others approvals others approval constantly, you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of history. Those who fought for slavery, right? There was a community and a really, really hard fought for um, ideology that forced people to go out there to fight for things that were wrong. And those that fought for freedom, that fought against slavery and against the separation of the states, that was the other thing they were fighting for. Um, they were fighting. They were fighting ideologically. But they were fighting ideologically with their eyes wide open. Where those in the Confederate Army were fighting ideologically with their eyes closed shut. And history worked out the way that it did. But those who stood for justice and truth, and those who stood for God's word, and those who stood for morality, they did end up on the right side of history. But it was difficult. Um, there's more to learn when you're in a there's a lot to learn when you're dealing with standing on your own and standing for truth and standing for what is right versus being told. You got to remember, at the end of the day, as I try to bring this back to the main themes of my channel, health. When you are healthy in mind and body and spirit, it gives you the world at your feet. You can accomplish so much. You can stand on the right side of history every single time. It's not always easy to figure it out. You got to work hard for it, right? But you stand on the right side of history. And you can create, you can build, you can make. But if you just go after indulgence and entertainment, often you're going to be on the wrong side of history, because the consumer cannot choose what the products will be. The creator does. And if we are creators, we choose the products. And being healthy is the beginning of that. Does that make sense? As I bring it back home. I've really gone a long journey with you today. It's a long journey. You're going to be 50 years old one day. I pray you'll be 50, 80, 110. Like, I want you around. Okay? And being healthy is the way that you can do that and live rich. I'm not talking about food. I'm talking about the quality of life and what's in your life. You can live so well. We're not judging you. I'm not judging you. I value you. And your future self values you. And the people around you who love you, they value you. For the next 30 days, what choices would you make? What choices are you going to make that would be in harmony with that reality? Don't get tired of doing what's right. It often does not pay today, but it will pay you richly tomorrow. Doing what's right is a tomorrow plan. It also gives you a very clear mind. You're worthy of the effort that it takes. You're worthy. I know this has been a long stream, and I thank you for watching. May God bless you. May God guide you. May you have success that's meaningful to you. And if you like this kind of content, I'm going to be making more. More live streams are coming. And I'll be focusing on whether it's weight loss, health, mental health, and different things, self-improvement. There's more coming. I pray God blesses you. I pray that you feel God every day around you. And I'll see you in the next live stream. Bye for now.